currency. Out of control than it's worth it. Out-of-control deflation can be 1,000 times more terrifying. And as being a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and a store of value, bottle caps honestly work really, really well. They were chosen from a lore perspective because the technology for creating bottle caps was lost when the bombs dropped, meaning that the number of bottle caps in circulation rarely changes. New caps enter the economy only very rarely when folks find a stash somewhere or someone opens a bottle of cola to drink its contents. It's very similar to gold in this way, which was the standard currency for thousands of years. Inflation basically couldn't exist, at least not aggressive inflation, because in order for there to be more money, more gold had to be found. Gold is relatively rare, like bottle caps, so it very infrequently entered the economy at a rate that humans couldn't handle. To those of us who kind of grow up thinking of gold as being innately valuable, it makes the idea of bottle caps being the exact same thing as the gold standard kind of ludicrous. But why is gold valuable? I mean, you can't eat it. You can't really make any reliable tools from it. Unless you're very, very wealthy and very, very strong, you can't build a house from it. You can make jewelry, of course, but that just means it's pretty. It doesn't have very many utilities, especially in an era without modern electronics manufacturing. So, practically speaking, there's nothing that makes gold any more valuable to us than paper or bottle caps. So it's true that gold doesn't have a lot of practical utility to an animal when it comes to directly facilitating survival, but gold is very, very good
Let's just see if this will power it up.
Money. To understand why, we're going to have to look at what gold is a bit more closely. When are you going to talk about how it makes no sense that there are bottle caps in the East Coast games like Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 when bottle caps were a currency established in the West Coast of Fallout 1 and 2? Calm down. We'll get there. Just trust me. Anyway, back to gold. Sanat Kumar is the department chair of chemical engineering at Columbia University in New York, and he went through all the different elements on the periodic table one by one and explained why they, unlike gold, are really, really bad at being money. Gases, for instance, are gases, and are hard to see, weigh, and store. In fact, some, like helium, eventually leak out of even the most well-sealed containers, so gases are no good. Other heavier elements like lithium are incredibly reactive and prone to bursting into flames without warning, and even if they're not that reactive, they're still unstable enough that they eventually corrode away, like silver. Others, like silicon, are incredibly common to the point of being essentially worthless. Some, like these down here, are radioactive, while rare metals like osmium are so rare that, you basically can't find them. Anyway, when he cut through all the crap, there are two metals on our planet that were the most likely candidates for being used as money: gold and platinum. Both are rare and therefore inflation resistant, but not so rare as to be unfindable. And they're shelf stable, meaning that they don't corrode away like silver and other metals. So why did gold end up winning out in the test of history? Well, for two reasons. One, gold is very easy to identify over other objects, whereas platinum kind of looks a lot like other metals. But more importantly, gold has a melting temperature of only 1,064 degrees Celsius, 148 degrees Fahrenheit, which is easily meltable by a regular fire, whereas platinum has to be heated over 1,700 degrees Celsius, or over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, in order to be turned into distinct and standardized coins. So with gold, we can add easy to identify and easy to turn into money. So what does this have to do with bottle caps? Well, quite a lot, actually. Bottle caps have a lot of these same qualities themselves. They're rare, but not too rare. They seem to be mostly shelf-stable, since they've managed to stick around relatively unaltered for over 200 years. Are inflation-resistant like gold is, because the technology to create them has been lost. They're easy to identify and really, really hard to forge. So all the qualities that make gold good at being money, bottle caps have in spades. This is cool and all, but from a lore perspective, does it make any sense that they're using bottle caps in the wasteland of the DC area, like in Fallout 3, or in the Commonwealth in Fallout 4? Bethesda never really answers this directly. So after going through all these different qualities that make gold a good ancient currency, Kumar even posited that if we were to reset the world all over again, back to zero, and try it again, humans would very likely choose gold as a currency again, no matter what, because of these qualities that make it so clearly favorable over the other options. So it stands to reason that in different pockets of the United States wasteland, folk would choose to rely on bottle caps because of their unique qualities.
I'm gonna equip the most expensive shit onto me.
Isn't good enough for me, and it relies on way too much randomness and coincidence. But it lets me talk about my absolute favorite thing ever: the Jet Road. You know, it's funny. When I was in school growing up, my history teachers framed the world as though countries and nation-states were just these isolated pockets of their own culture for thousands of years until the age of industry, when suddenly we discovered better boats and airplanes and could finally conduct trade across the world with people far away from us. But this wasn't really the case at all. The Silk Road, for instance, existed for thousands of years. It was a interconnected trade network that stretched from China all the way to Europe. Everything from food to spices were traded, but the biggest export was its namesake, silk. The Silk Road was also responsible for bringing the very first shipment of opium to China. Opium was one of the only things Western powers could leverage over China to maintain anything resembling an economic edge for hundreds of years. And it was even the catalyst of a couple wars. Drugs are always popular in trade, which brings us back to the Jet Road. You see, bottle caps aren't the only things from the West Coast we see in the East. Jet, for instance, was invented by Myron in Fallout 2 and was immensely popular. So seeing it in Fallout 3 and 4, even though they take place a mere 40 years after the events of Fallout 2 on the opposite end of the country, that seems kind of weird, doesn't it? Well, no, not really. The Silk Road, for instance, existed in ages before cars, antibiotics, and airplanes spanned thousands of miles in all directions. Walking from San Francisco to...
You are listening to Why Are Bottle Caps Really Used as Money?
...to Washington, D.C. takes only 38 days of travel. Obviously, you need to stop and rest, but it's feasible that it would take less than a year for goods to be traded one way and then back again. There's plenty of evidence that people travel from east to west all the time. There's the paramilitary organizations with lots of resources, of course, like the Enclave and the Brotherhood of Steel, but Harold, a character from Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, makes an appearance in Fallout 3, and in a memory sequence you learn that Kellogg, the very first antagonist of Fallout 4, originally grew up in the NCR and worked his way east to find his fortune. So it stands to reason that the East Coast, West Coast, and everything in between have a thriving trade relationship with one another, with goods traveling up and down this Jet Road, even though they're in their own somewhat isolated communities. And if they're trading with one another, it makes sense that
that's when explosive
upon currency, even if it's something as silly as bottle caps. So, do bottle caps make sense as a currency? Well, they're rare, but not too rare. They're easy to carry, they're hard to fake, they're inflation resistant, and why are they out east? Because of global trade and the sweet, sweet allure of drugs that people will never be rid of, because drugs never changes. Change. Thanks for watching. So, in case you haven't realized it yet, I'm a little bit of an economics nerd. Actually, a little bit more than a little bit of an economics nerd. I actually have a collection of John Maynard Keynes, also a huge listener of the Planet Money and Freakonomics podcasts, both of which talk about real economics in an everyday way that makes it easy for, you know, you and I to understand. I'm a huge audio guy, and I get really bored by reading. You know, it's funny because I love the stuff that's in books. I just hate sitting and reading them. I'm the kind of person who likes to move and accomplish things, and reading just often feels like a waste of my time. It's why I love podcasts so much, and it's also why I fucking love audiobooks from Audible. I know, sponsorship's gonna make you feel bleh, but I actually really like Audible because it lets me learn stuff while I'm, like, vacuuming my apartment. In fact, I've researched rethinking episodes while doing the dishes. Like Ray Kurzweil's book, How to Create a Mind, for the episode on synths. Right now I'm listening to Misbehaving by economist Richard Thaler. Thaler is a pioneer in a branch of economics called behavioral economics, which is a reaction to traditional economics that tends to presume that people within an economic system, like you and me, are these preternatural, logical, rational people, like a bunch of Mr. Spock.
Hold on one sec. It died?
And my battery died, yeah.
Oh, okay. I think they're in the car.
Are they in the car?
Yeah. I didn't think I took them out. Okay. Alright, I'm back. Looks like Spock. Rest in peace, Spock.
Great things like predict behind bottle caps being the currency and the East Coast renditions of Fallout? Is it just Bethesda being like, yeah, this is part of the Fallout aesthetic, let's just throw it in there? But, I mean, I don't know, the whole jet road thing, I like the whole trade thing, it makes a lot of sense to me. Anyway, all this stuff about money in the episode is legit research and really true things. You should check out the Planet Money podcast, which I have, that talks about all the different elements. I have that linked in the description. Thank you to our Patreon supporters who have donated their actual money.
Why are bottlecasts
every
really
month
used
to
as
keep
money?
Shoddycast
So we're
alive.
Shoddycast.
Because of that we were able to keep this show running. And yeah, that's about it. Watch our other videos. We got some of those. And tell me what you think. Should we go back to a bottle cap standard? When will the great bottle cap bubble come and burst and create a deflation spiral in the Fallout universe? I actually had a joke about that. John Maynard Keynes's child or ancestor or future ancestor coming, but nothing happened. I was gonna talk about bitcoins too, but the episode's already long enough. Cryptocurrency! Yeah.
Secrets of the Glowing Sea.
You will have total authority to create the perfect underground community. Turn an excavation into the very picture of vault life. Choose the ideal dwellers. Send them above ground. Protect them from threats. And of course, help facilitate the repopulation of this great nation of ours.
Dear Bethesda, good morning. I think it's morning where you are, right? Wait, is it morning where I am? Where am I? I mean, I'm in this enclosed space and it's dark. I mean, there's a microphone, but it doesn't look like my closet. I mean, a high-tech recording booth. Why can't I remember anything from last night? Ah, well, I'm sure it's fine. Today, Bethesda, I'm writing to you on behalf of Leo Maximus Bonin, who wants to know the science behind the glowing sea in Fallout 4. So, let's get this fucker started, shall we? Bethesda, your glowing sea makes no goddamn sense. Wait a minute. I can't really take that as a foregone conclusion anymore. I mean, what's the point of doing the show if it's always, oh, this thing is bullshit? I know it because Austin is doing the video, started it with a deer whatever the fuck, and I read the video title. No more of that, I say. From now on, you're gonna have to watch to the nitty-gritty end of the video to find out what the fuck is going on. Anyway, back to the glowing sea. The glowing sea is a cesspool of latent radiation. One giant fucking hotspot in the middle of a fucking hellscape of doom, leading up to a giant crater where supposedly the bomb that took out the Boston area dropped. In order to find out how much latent radiation a bomb would leave behind, first we need to figure out how big it was. So to figure that out, we just go into the intro, measure the cloud, and hop on the map and find the diameter of the... Nah, I'm just kidding. Fuck that shit. I'm gonna take the back door easy way today because the folk at Interplay and Black Isle did a fucking incredible job researching their game world. I guess that's what you have to do when your graphics more or less look like a wet brown fart on a cardboard box and still want it to be good. In the Fallout 1 manual, they state that most nuclear weapons
Kilotons.
during this period of history are between 300 to 750 kilotons. This is still quite a bit stronger than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but compared to bombs we've created since then, they're positively minuscule. For instance, the Tsar Bomba, the largest bomb ever detonated, megatons. 66 times the strength of the average nuke in the Fallout universe. Even more terrifying, this Russian bomb was designed so that it could be retrofitted to be 100 megatons, twice the strength of what it was when it was detonated. Fun fact, Tsar Bomba created a fireball 8 kilometers in diameter. That's nearly 5 fucking miles of pure, unadulterated nuclear rage. Jesus fucking Christ, that is not okay. The Tsar Bomba was designed and tested in 1959, well before Fallout 1 and even Wasteland was conceived and made. So why did the developers choose bombs that were significantly smaller in order to create this nuclear wonderland of post-apocalyptic nightmares for us to play in? Simple. Answers in the name of the franchise. Fallout. That's Fallout with a lowercase f. You see, the biggest immediate danger from a nuclear bomb going
of the stored energy in the bomb is released in 1/1,000,000th of a second, and it tears through shit like fucking, I don't know, something terrible. What do you compare a nuclear bomb to? It's the single most destructive weapon we've ever conceived of. Anyway, while the whole 90% of our doom happens immediately thing may seem like the most important problem to worry about since it's leveling houses and, vaporizing our hopes and dreams, but the rest of the leftover radioactive materials combine with local dust and debris in a raging fireball which rises up into the sky and cools into a recognizable mushroom cloud. This radioactive dust is called fallout. In small bombs, like the little boy and the fat man, the radioactive fallout remains pretty low. Bomba, however, shoot the debris so high that it enters the stratosphere. And here is where the about 50 years. It varies, of course, but that's the end. Most of the immediately hazardous materials have even shorter half-lives and can be essentially harmless in months. Really, really strong bombs that launch their fallout high into the stratosphere, well, that fallout can stay there for years before making it back down to the ground. By then, it's diluted and dissipated and mostly harmless, but the writers at Interplay chose weaker bombs which maximize the spread of immediately harmful dust and fallout, as bombs that are merely 750 kilotons are less immediately dangerous because the blasts they create are significantly less powerful than bombs like Tsar Bomba. Their longer-term effects are much more pronounced. Bombs of this size can spread deadly doses of radioactive fallout in a radius of over 25 miles in just 3 hours, causing people within that sphere who are unable to find shelter to suffer from acute radiation poisoning. I won't go into the symptoms today because they are utterly terrible. But the truth of the matter is that most of a bomb's latent radioactive energy is used when it explodes, with the remnant fallout taking roughly 50 years or so to almost entirely dissipate. So, where does this leave our glowing sea? What the fuck is it doing there? I mean, when you go there, you get the idea that this is the wasteland of radioactive fallout from a bomb that dropped when Fallout 4 started. But the radiation from the bomb should have long dissipated before our protagonist emerges from Vault 111. Nah, well, you see, while it's true that radiation from a bomb dissipates very, very quickly, the same cannot be said for nuclear reactors, of which there are a fucking assload in the Fallout universe. You see, while bombs were designed to release their energy incredibly quickly, nuclear reactors are the exact opposite. A lot of people don't know how nuclear energy works. They're steam engines. No, seriously, nuclear materials heat up surrounding water that absorbs their energy, which turns to steam, which turns turbines, which generates power. It's effectively the same technology we first used during the Industrial Revolution. Neat, huh? Well, as you know, occasionally these things can go supernova. Nah, not really. They undergo what's called a meltdown. Most people have no idea what this is, which is fine. They're pretty fucking rare, except for, of course, some notable exceptions. Anyway, the specifics of a meltdown vary depending upon the reactor in question, but the basics are the same. The reactor overheats because of insufficient cooling to the point of melting, mixes with the cooling agents, creates steam, and ejects radioactive material all over the place. And you know what? There are nuclear reactors fucking everywhere in the Fallout universe. They're in the radios, in the cars, in the televisions, military-grade weapons, personal computers, homes, fucking everything is powered by small nuclear reactors. And you know what's destabilizing for a nuclear reactor core? A fucking bomb going off.
Crap.
So
I'm missing one.
totally, entirely feasible that a 750 kiloton bomb going off would unleash a huge blast covering several square miles, destabilizing every piece of nuclear radioactive shit in its path, melting them down and ejecting radioactive material fucking everywhere. Of course, eventually the blast would subside and stop immediately tearing through shit, which, is probably where the boundary of the glowing sea is. And radiation from a nuclear reactor incident can be around for fucking ever. Chernobyl, the worst nuclear reactor incident in our history, will have dangerous hotspots for decades and, by some estimates, thousands of years, depending upon how you count it and how bad individual radiation concentrations are. So, Bethesda, it turns out your glowing sea is plausible. Probably not, the ghouls and the actual levels of radiation there, but who the fuck knows, honestly? People in 2077 were fucking obsessed with nuclear-powered everything, so there was probably more than enough uranium lying around to pollute the local habitat for several generations, especially if there was a power station nearby, which there was. I'm gonna call this one plausible. It's not terrible because of nuclear fallout, but because of thousands of tiny and quite possibly one large nuclear meltdowns. is how many bombs were actually dropped during the Great War? How many would have had to have been dropped in order to create an annihilation of our country in China? Well, I'm glad you asked, Austin, because the answer is... Oh, wait, out of time already? Just getting started. Fine, that will have to wait till next week. Sincerely, Austin. P.S. What does Frank Corrigan's dick look like? Thank you everyone for watching my video on the glowing sea. See, not everything I cover is completely ridiculous, and honestly,
Yes, I got them all.
holds up to rigor. I'm not totally convinced that Bethesda actually thought it out, but they did put a nuclear power plant in the glowing sea, so you know what? Maybe they did. So if you have any questions about video game science you'd like me to answer, it doesn't have to
That's
be
so cool.
Fallout. It could be Dark Souls. It could be something
This is where I
else.
had all my
I
other
don't know.
power
Do
armors
something. Just
on
tell
this
me.
platform
Ask
up
me. I
here.
love to write about it. I love to learn new things.
I'll
Next
load
week
up
we'll be
some old.
talking about how many bombs were dropped during the Great War, and the great thing is I actually have most of my research done for it already. I just have to type up the script, and the answers are pretty freaking cool, so I'm very excited about that. I may be doing another one about fallout shelters in the immediate future too, so that's exciting. Look for that. If you liked this video, be sure to like it, because it makes our lives better, and it makes me feel good to see all the likes versus the dislikes. And if you're not subscribed to our channel yet, you should subscribe to our channel. It's, not too hard. You just click the subscribe button. We
Shout out
love
to
have
Shoddycast,
new people to watch our
our
videos
hour
and argue with us about video
again,
game science. It's so much
our
fun.
hour
And
again.
I'd like to put out a personal thank you to our Patreon contributors who...
10 creepiest Fallout 4 locations.
Let's face it, the idea of Armageddon and apocalypse has been in our mythos for quite some time. Yet despite some people thinking that we're prepared for this, no one can really understand how living in the barren world, where society's in chaos, can actually be. That's why games tend to be a unique way to express such things.
Oaks March Pentecostal Church. We're gonna go there.
This is the way a church can look during a post-apocalyptic time. You find this place in a radioactive desert, so the air is thick, and you find remnants of the prisoners and people that lived there. Some of them half buried. Combine that with the constant fear of being surrounded by goons, and the entire region feels deserted and filled with challenges at the same time. Then you get a good understanding on how intense Hope's March Pentecostal Church really is. Coming here might be a nuisance for some, but I do appreciate the unique atmosphere that they offer here, and I'm more than impressed with the stuff that they have to offer. Still, you have to be on your toes when you visit this place, as you never know what you might find.
Maybe this is the church. Fucking each other up.
That likes the killer's victims in a really and very dramatic fashion. It's pretty cryptic compared to everything else that you can find in Fallout 4, and the overall gruesomeness of all these killings is definitely set to turn your stomach. From young women to babies to adults, there are numerous killings here, and the fact that you can see a corpse eaten from a dogfish, you can easily understand how demented, diabolical, and deeply disturbing this place really is. If you're a fan of Fallout as a whole, and want to explore all the human science of this game in all of its glory, I recommend you to check out the Ben Street Sewer right now, as this is one of the creepiest locations out there. Sure, it might look scary even in photos, but if you're after some interesting horror in Fallout 4, experiencing it as you play,
Pentecostal, that's what I'd be going to. That's so cool though, it's creepy as hell in there. Oh crap. That guy's suckers. Yeah, boy. Leave me alone, dude. Whoa.
Someone ready to kill you. So you should check it out as
That was scary.
personal visit if you are into tense horror scenes.
Baby.
Everyone is playing in Center K21B. It's creepy because not only does it have a lot of dead bodies, it also features some
Yeah.
horrific scenes
You hungry?
inside and outside.
Yep.
Crop's been growing pretty good lately.
You know what I call a good day? One that ends without an empty stomach.
I appear to be well built for travel. You should be contented.
Got a dangerous look about you. Hope you ain't here for me.
carrying out their function until the end. My databanks are continuing to accumulate vast amounts of data regarding the Commonwealth. Rust-proof, radiation-proof, and a lifetime supply of power. I couldn't ask for more. You lead the way, and I'll follow, sir. Let's look around for robot components. I wouldn't mind an upgrade. The daily choices you humans need to make regarding life and death must be quite a burden. I trust you're enjoying my company. You and I make quite an effective team. Greed, hate, anger. It's a shame that humans seem to rely on negative emotions in order to survive. You might want to drop some of those things you're carrying. My systems are continuing to function at peak efficiency.
folks want to make life hard for people just trying to survive. I'm not.
General,
Hi.
I'm sure I have something you need.
I'll take a look, sure.
Let me know what you'd like.
We've survived another night. A triumph, I think.
Not a lot of folks would travel with it. My this mountain. Not sure how much of this fresh air and sunshine I can handle. A bar around here somewhere. Most folks that run with me rest.
Your emotions appear to be an anomaly in your programming. Perhaps you should have them purged.
no sport to spilling blood if the person ain't earned it.
I wonder how long my systems will endure these rugged conditions.
Never built much myself.
I wonder what you'll build next.
Operate heavy machinery.
You certainly know your way around a workbench. I'm afraid I'll be unable to extract any useful data from these robots, sir.
Never did understand how these buckets survived the apocalypse.
Proving to be quite enlightening.
Battery-operated nuisances, you ask me. All the havoc this thing's seen, can't believe it looks as good as it does.